Hello, all my favorite people of the world. I hope you guys are doing great today. I'm sorry I can't be with you. We're going to do one of my favorite things, though, and that is figuring out volume. So, volume, we use all these crazy, cool formulas, but just like the Pythagorean theorem, once we practice a lot with them, they get better. We get better with them. And two, we've got to make sure we put numbers in the right place. Otherwise, it makes these equations very challenging. So here's where we are at today in our notes. And we're just going to jump right in. Today we're only going to be looking at cylinders and cones today. Cylinders and cones. We'll do spheres another day, probably tomorrow. But for today, just cylinders. So let's dive right in. It says to find the volume of a cylinder, you only need to know the dimensions of two things. Right, just two things only. Once I know those, I'm good. First thing I need to know is the radius. All right, sometimes we'll know the diameter, and that's fine too. The other thing I'd like to know is the height. Okay. Just as a quick refresher, if you have a diameter, so let's say radius times 2 equals diameter. Okay, or I could go the other way. I could say diameter divided, that's diameter, divided by 2 equals radius. So that's just a quick refresher reminder for us about those two. So, of course, we can think of volume as a can, and we're trying to figure out what is the area, or really the space inside of the cylinder. To do that, we really make two calculations. One, we find the area of the base, right? That's the circle, the part that sits on the ground, and multiply it by the height. All right, so that's why our formula looks a little crazy, because we're figuring out the area of the base, and then we're multiplying that by the height, right? Because this cylinder is tall. So here's our couple easy steps, right? Just 3 awesome steps to figure out volume of a cylinder. Here's our practice problem. So notice we have 12 feet, that is the height, 3 feet, that is a radius. If I needed the diameter, it would be 6, or if it said, hey, here, the diameter of this is 6, well, we would divide that by 2 to get 3 for the radius. Awesome. Okay, so let's fill this out. To find the area of the base, the base is obviously the shape of a circle. So to find the area of it, use the formula, and then here it is right here, pi r squared, round to the nearest tenth. So pi times radius squared. Well, the radius in this case is 3, right? Or we could say 3 squared is 9. And 9 times pi. So if you find the pi button on your calculator, and you just hit 9 pi, and then you can hit equals, and it'll actually give you a number. In this case, it should give us the number. Well, it's going to give us a lot of stuff. We're just going to go to the, let's see, round to the nearest tenth. So 28.27, so then we can round that to 28.3. Sorry. Okay. So that's area of the base. Now we need to multiply that by the height. So the area of the base, we could say, is this 28.27. And I'm going to multiply that by the height, which we find right here. This is 12. Again, calculator does all the heavy lifting for us, 339.24. And we are in cubic feet. Okay. Always make sure that you write the unit of measure in there. But here's our handy dandy formula that we just used a second ago. So the volume is equal to, here we go, pi r squared h. Okay. Again, pi r squared, that's the area of the circle. H is just the height. Onward we go. Okay, so here we go. It says find the volume of the given cylinder. Show your work. And I would say show the formula. So volume equals pi r squared h. Okay, so pi, and that's my normal pi right there, times r. Well, look over here at your picture. Is 10 a radius? No, 10 is a diameter. So 10 divided by 2, so 5 squared, there's your radius. Height is 20. All right, so plug all these in to your calculator so you can say, hey, give me, pi times 5 squared times 20. We get a crazy number. We get, here we go, 1,570. And let's just round to the tenths, 0.8. Remember, we're not done till we label it, and we are in cubic centimeters. All right, so number one, we had a picture. Number two, I don't have a picture. All right, but it's going to give me everything I need to know. Here's your height. I've got a diameter, so that means I can easily get my radius, divide that by 2, so there you go. All right, volume equals pi r squared h. Okay, so the volume's equal to pi. The radius, so this is 9 squared times h, which is 7. All right. So, again, calculator. So pi times 9 squared times 7. And, again, we get another really cool number. Volume is equal to 1,781. Again, 0.3. And this time we're in inches. And they are cubed, so cubic inches. And at any time, feel free to pause this, and you can try these on your own. Again, just the more practice we do, the better it gets for us. Number 3, again, find the volume. Pi r squared h. There we go. Radius is 6, height is 10. So no fooling us here. All right, we've got the radius. So this is going to turn into pi times 6 squared times the height, all right, which is 10. So here we go. So pi times 6 squared, that's 36, times 10. And so this one, volume equals 1,130.97. And we could actually round that up to 1,131. Right, and these are cubic feet. Okay, all right. Last two on this page. Cylinder has a radius of 3, height of 12. Find the volume. Got it? Again, pi r squared h. Make sure you've got a radius and not a diameter, which we do. So pi times 3 squared times my height of 12. All right, 3 squared is 9, and we'll multiply all that by 12, and we get a volume of 339.29, so we'll round that to 0.3, and we are in cubic feet. Okay, and the last one. Whew, we made it. Volume equals pi r squared h. So again, radius of 5. This time we've got a height of 15. So pi times 5 squared times 15. All right, volume here. Again, we're in cubic feet. It's 1,178. We'll call it 0.1. Again, cubic feet. All right. So here you guys take over. So why don't you guys go ahead and give these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 problems a go. And on here it says find the volume, use 3.14 for pi. All right, so we can just type in 3.14 instead of pi. It's not going to change our answer really by a whole bunch. Round to the nearest hundredth. All right, so there's your 2 instructions. Again, make sure you have a radius. On the 4 pictures that I have, I think 2 of those are radiuses and 2 of those are diameters. All right. So good luck on those. Pause this video. When you come back, we'll have the answers up. Again, show your work, circle your answer. That will make your math teacher happy. All right, so pause this, do those, unpause it, and then we'll move on to cones. Welcome back, my favorite people. Okay, so here are your 7 answers for these. So check them off, see how you did. Hopefully you got some of those right. And again, just practice and making sure we're plugging in our numbers in the right places that we need to. So those are cylinders. Now we are going to move on to cones. Cones are closely related to cylinders. We'll find out that our formula looks really the same, and there's always a certain number of cones that would fit into the same size cylinder. All right, so let's fast forward over here. Bam, here we are. So this is going to be our next page. Here we go. Cones. Funny shaped objects that they are. To find the volume of a cone, once again, we only need to know a few dimensions. I need to know, all right, radius. Again, if I have diameter, that's fine. We also need to know the height. Oops, H. There we go. So radius and height are great. Or we need the area, right, of the base, which, look at the base, right? The area of this base, once again, is going to be a circle. And, of course, we could also still use the height. Again, so a little redundant there, but we're going to figure out area of the base, multiply that by the height, kind of like what we just did. But we clearly could see that if we had the same sized cone and the same size cylinder, the cone has to have less volume. So there's something else that we need to do here. Okay, and we'll work that through here as we go through a quick example problem here. So step 1, just like it was before, find the area of the base. Once again, it says use the formula pi r squared because we're dealing with a circle. Round to the nearest tenth. So in this case, radius is 4, so we're looking at 4 squared, which happens to be 16. 16 times that, so this is 50.27, or you could just call it 50.3. All right, so step 1, area of the base, there you go, pi r squared, that's still the same. Step 2, multiply that area by the height. So let's go back to that 5.27 I had. Multiply that by height here is 8. All right, so when I do that, I get 402.16 if my calculator's right. And this is where we would stop for a cylinder. We've got one extra step, and that's right here. And that's to divide that number, that product, by 3. Or the same thing, dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3. Makes no difference what we do. So we can take that 402.16, divide it by 3, or multiply by 1/3. So let's say, yep, here we go. So we'll have our 402.16, and we divide that by 3, which turns out to be 134.05. Right. So this part here is really important. So that means if we had the same size, and there's no laughing, all right, if we had 3 of the same sized cones, okay, 3 of those would be exactly equal, right, to 1 of the same sized cylinders. So 3 of these equal just 1 of these. That's why we divide it by 3, because in essence what we're doing is we're figuring out that there are 3 cones in every one cylinder. Of course, they must have the same radius, they must have the same height. Okay? Here's our fancy equation, and it looks just like this. So we can say, if I want to find the volume of a cone, it is 1/3. Ooh, that was pi r squared h. That is the worst h I've ever done. There you go. So 1/3 pi r squared h. Right? Underlined part right there is exactly what we just did on cylinders. We add the 1/3 because of what I just said earlier, right? 3 cones will fit into the same size cylinder. So I need 1/3 of that volume. Okay. Alrighty. Practice problems. Here we go. Find the volume of the given cone. So again, we've got to make sure we've got a radius, not a diameter. I believe that is the case here. So let's find the volume. So if we're going to use a formula, we might as well write it out. So pi r squared h, and remember, we want 1/3 of that. We're just multiplying 4 numbers together, really is all we're doing. So we're going to say, all right, what's 1/3 times pi times 7 squared times 12? Right, and if we put all of that into our calculator, it'll spit out a number for us here, 615.75. I don't know what units we are in, it doesn't say, so we could just say units cubed if we wanted to, okay? Problem number 2, no picture on this one. I've got a diameter of 8 and a height of 4. So diameter of 8 means you have a radius that's 4. So volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Okay, so 1/3 pi. My radius is 4 squared. My height is 4. Okay, plug all that into our calculator. 1/3 times pi times 16 times 4. Let's see here, 67.02. Right, I got inches on that one, so we're in cubic inches. All right, what do we know here? Radius is 12. Height is also 12. All right, 1/3 pi r squared h. So 1/3 times pi. Radius is 12, so 12 squared, that's going to be 144. All right, we're going to multiply that by the height of 12. Let's see, 1,809.56. We're in feet, so these are cubic feet. Ooh. All right, and we're down to our last 2 here. Cone has a radius of this, a height of that. All right, 1/3 pi r squared h. So radius, okay, not a great number, 2.3. We're going to square that, and then we're going to multiply that by our height of 6. We do all that, 33.24. Can you imagine having to do all those calculations by hand? That would just be disgusting, wouldn't it? Thank you for inventing calculators, Mr. Calculator, or whoever you are. Last question, number 5. Diameter of 8.2 and a height of 10. All right, so again, don't use 8.2. I need radius on this one. So this one has a radius of 4.1. Okay, so 1/3 pi r squared h. All right, so radius, here you go, 4.1 squared. Height, 10. Multiply all that out, 176.03 feet. And again, we're in cubic feet. Okay. So there you go. So there's those 5. As you've guessed it, I've got 5 more. No, check that. 7 more practice problems for you right here. So go ahead, take a look at our special instructions. Again, we can use 3.14 for pi. We're going to round to the nearest hundredth. So pause this, give these numbers a shot, see how you do, and then we'll go from there. Hola. Welcome back. Hopefully your calculations were spot on with those 7 there. Again, if they're not, double check, make sure you're multiplying everything right. Make sure you're using a radius, not a diameter. But all good there. And then we should have a good amount of time left for you guys to get started on your homework. All right, and that's these 2 right here. So there's a whopping total of 16 problems for you in our 2 worksheets. So cylinders on one, cones on the other. So let's get started on that. Again, just work through. The more you use these formulas, the better you get. But let's do those for homework tonight. So if you've got time left today, you can get started on that. And this will be due tomorrow once I am back. So have a great rest of the day, and good luck. See ya, everybody.